Guys, welcome back to the Match Out Podcast with yours truly, cousin Frank Ciatto, Christopher Shay, producer extraordinaire Peter Oberg, and we're back. Where's my discipline stick?
Where is this?
I broke it and threw it in the garbage.
Okay, well, we'll use a dumbbell then if we need something. Not a problem. So, but the discipline stick is still alive and well. That is part of the show now for unfortunate reasons. You know.
Yeah, I know.
Frank.
That's okay. I've been working on him. I don't think he's going to be bad anymore.
Wow. Good Lord.
I left my phone in my bag this time.
Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Let's not mess up the episodes, you know.
Yeah.
So guys and gals out there in social media land and beyond, so we have a good topic today. It kind of like, it comes full circle, you know, we're coming towards the end of a season in our preferred sport. You know, you get to see a lot of different things and things that happen. And, you know, I just want to preface first saying that when you put yourself in, or your child, or whatever the case may be, is when you put yourself into a position or you belong to a team, and you're working your tail off to give your best and be the best and be competitive and support yourself, your teammates, your coaches, so on and so forth. It's a real shame that when you come along and you see a situation, which I unfortunately saw 2 weeks ago now, 1 week ago, where preferential treatment was given to certain individuals because of relationships, and in that preferential treatment disrespects the sport.
But not only disrespect the sport, but I would think it would disrespect the team that person was on.
I was going to say that.
It definitely disrespects the sport. But if I was a parent on that, putting in all that hard work, putting in all that effort, doing all the things I need to do to get myself ready, and then have a situation like that occur, I'd be like, who the hell is this?
Yeah.
And why does he not have to do what we all did?
So what happened exactly?
Well, we were at a sporting event, and you know, listen, because I never blame the kid.
No, of course not.
I never blame the child. It's always, you know, when situations like this happen, you have to blame the parent and the coach and anyone else that was involved in the programs that allowed it to happen, to just give it a broad-based spectrum. I could sit here and I could point fingers, and I like to do that, but I want to be fair, you know, in this particular situation. And you know, we were at a sporting event, a championship event, and we witnessed an student athlete that was allowed to compete at this endeavor, who hasn't practiced, who hasn't competed, who hasn't done anything for that sport, but actually was in another sport, you know, practicing in another sport. And because of the relationship between this athlete's parent and the coach, this coach allowed this athlete to come in and compete at this athletic event, and it's disgusting.
How'd he do?
Not good.
I think he did. Yeah.
No, he didn't do well.
Yeah.
He didn't do well. He last out of X amount is not good.
Right.
So, you know,
I mean, and right there, that's almost like that parent is doing a disservice to his child also. You put this child in there. Now, from my understanding, the child's had some success in the past. So now you take a child, you put him into this situation, not having him practice, not having him prepared, not having him gotten himself ready, and he comes in last place. It's
but
like,
I was just saying.
it's almost like,
I don't,
damn.
I don't honestly.
I could
I don't
care.
put it on the parent. I put it on the coach, because in my opinion, especially if I have a kid who's a stud, and I've seen the kid do amazing things. Of course, I'm always going to advocate for my child. But as a coach, as the leader of the helm, I mean, you're driving that ship. That's what a teaching moment. Hey, you're a stud? That's great. Let me show you something. You don't practice? Take a seat on this pine real quick and get comfortable with it. Because if you're not putting in the work, I'm not putting you out there. You're not going to give me your best product. Even if you're that good of a kid, think about the product you're going to give me if you were training for the past 2 weeks or whatever the case is. Right. So for me, in my experiences, I would have to put it on the coach in that experience.
yeah, I tend to agree with Frank, and I think you're a hypocrite. You know, you disrespected the efforts of the rest of the team and those athletes who have broken their ass to go out there all year long, you know. And what message are you sending? You're sending the message
because I am sure there's been instances where the coach said, "Hey, you don't come to practice, you don't do X, Y, and Z."
Well, that's most normal coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So now all of a
he says
sudden,
that, but imagine he says that, right? You've been training your ass off all week. Paul shows up. Hey, Paul, go get him. and you're like, you're wrestling in his weight class,
Oh,
by
yeah,
the way.
forget about
So
that.
you're gonna sit out, and he's gonna come in. You've been trained. What, like, how you think next time I ask something out of you, I'm gonna get it?
I mean,
no.
that's Mickey Mouse bullshit, let's be honest with you, and I think we all agree with that, but I think more importantly, in this particular situation, the weight class was a weak weight class, okay? It's never competitive. You know,
Is this at the
that's
high school or elementary?
youth.
Youth, okay.
So, you know, it's a weak weight class, you know, so I'll be honest again, you don't really have to be that good to compete at that weight class. You don't. You just don't, because at that level, there's nobody there. You may end up in there with 2 guys in your class, and guess what? So you win one match, you win the game, and you're a state champion. You know what I mean? That's the disgusting part, and the fact that you know this and that you allow it to happen, all for the sake of hoping you're going to gamble and that's going to happen. Why? So what did the coach do? Outside of being biased and showing preferential treatment, that coach took a gamble to say, hey, if the kid wins a match, we got a state champ, we could tell. You know what I mean? But then what happens?
To try and
Yeah.
fluff up their
up.
record, fluff up their, you know.
But outside of fluffing up the
Yeah.
record, the greater issue, in my opinion, is if that student athlete was playing another sport and never did the work for the sport that's in season, or we're at the same time, whatever, because this is what we're talking about, and then all of a sudden is allowed to show up. You know, I spoke to an official. I was telling you about the conversation,
Yeah.
and he was disgusted with it because he knew exactly what I was talking about. You know, and this is a very well-respected official, you know, in the sport. And we spoke on Sunday about it, and he was just very bothered and disgusted by it, you know, and more so because of, again, I have to agree with Frank, the coach allowed it.
And the message you're sending to everybody.
Yes,
is
and
just.
it's disgusting, you know, and more importantly, when you know what goes in, listen, I have to show respect to every sport if you're gonna compete at it at a high level. Okay?
Of course.
Obviously, we have our biases here. We all, you know, it's obvious what our bias is as far as athletics are concerned. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to say this because we haven't been clear on it, because I want to be fair and protect the student athlete. I don't want to, you know, 'cause
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not his
It's
fault.
not his fault at all.
It's not his fault. And the fact of the matter is that when it comes to the sport of wrestling, and I know we speak about it a lot here, obviously. Everyone out there, I've said it, we've said it, we're sportsmen. I respect and I like watching every sport, but there is a clear cut difference of wrestling to any other sport, and what goes into it to be good at it, the physical, the mental. We're not going to get into it. It's just the way it is.
It's grueling.
It's grueling, and then when you disrespect that and the effort of
That all
these
the other
kids,
boys put in.
kids are putting in, and you allow someone who wasn't even officially part of the team, well, obviously you put them on a roster to use that person for your own benefit, but didn't go through the rigors of what it takes to be on that wrestling team, and then is allowed just to show up for their own convenience. It's disgusting. It's pathetic.
It's amazing how, you know, some coaches, or a lot of coaches are not like that, or a lot of towns are not like that, but in some places it's like that.
Oh,
just
it's
unbelievable.
rampant. Yeah.
So, I mean, this, because I know if I was the parent of the kid who got put aside for this guy who hasn't been there, I would have freaked out. I mean,
Well, I don't think this
wasn't-
this
yeah,
wasn't the
that
case.
wasn't it, yeah.
There was nobody was put aside, because then you're talking about a whole different animal. You're just talking about someone that was allowed by the coach.
was it an empty slot? There was no weight?
Yeah, because it's
Like an open tournament,
open-
so it wasn't like
yeah.
there was an empty slot or
But
not.
this was a state championship tournament.
Right.
This is for all the marbles. You understand? So my point is that because that weight class is a heavier weight class, like I said, you're not going to have a lot of kids. They're usually not good. The heavier you get, the worse they become. You know, the better.
See, but I have
they're
a-
not as good as athletes.
I have
okay?
a lot of questions, because my question is going to be like, all right, did they have this conversation prior and go, hey,
Of course
look.
they did.
But did they go, hey, look, you haven't trained, you haven't done XYZ, we're
Didn't make a
going to
difference.
throw you into this tournament to kind of like, even though we're not expecting you to do anything big, we want you to get some experience?
No, what
Like,
happened is I'm going to give
playing
you.
devil's
I'm going to give you the
advocate,
answer
'cause I wanna give them the benefit
We
of the
know
doubt,
the
but-
answer, so I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer in this particular situation is because this particular student athlete's parent was involved in the program forever, up until the last year, and was given preferential treatment because of his relationship with the coach.
That's
And
it.
that coach allowed it. So shame on the parent and shame on the coach. Because you disrespect the sport and you disrespect everyone that wrestles. Imagine how you would feel if that was happening on the football field, or the lacrosse field, or the soccer field, or the baseball field. Tell me how that would feel. Tell me how anyone would look at that and say it was okay. Tell me how, because it goes back to something we've talked about a million times in this podcast, in several topics, in several situations, in several issues with towns. The good old boy system. The fact that it's not about what your child can do, it's about who you know.
Well, I was just gonna say, see, like I gotta tell you, you're saying that well, you tell me what would happen if it was with another sport. I've seen it in other sports, and it's a real shame. And I think that's the difference between a program that lasts and stands the tail of time,
Correct.
and the fly night,
Fly by night.
yeah, legit. I mean, you see, someone who invests in the kids is going to get more out of them than someone who doesn't. If you're someone who just comes in and you're putting the pieces that you need to put in to try to give your best foot forward for a year, 2, maybe 3, you're going to notice right away. Where someone who comes in, who starts from the root system, builds that program, you may not have a great first, second, hell, you might not even have a great third year.
Right.
But, I mean, you look, not to bring up Coach Peel, you look at a place like New Milford High School. The guy is so embedded that in the season where he has to restart from over again, not that great this year. Next year, they look phenomenal already. I mean, you're invested into the kids, and when you do that, you get to get a different
Well,
experience.
listen, you have to respect the process no matter what the sport is. So that's what you're talking about. But I think more importantly,
This undermines the
this
process.
undermines the process
It
because,
undermines the
again,
process.
it's all about the good old boy system. Him and I were talking last night, and we're coming to the end of the season, and we both can't wait for it to happen because of what we have invested.
A nice big deep breath.
A deep breath, and even a mutual friend of ours sent a text. He's like, "Man, let's finish strong," and and so on and so forth. In the upcoming weekend, and
But see, that's the point we're talking about.
Yeah,
Let's
like,
finish strong.
strong.
Yeah, we're trying to finish strong.
Yeah.
We've put all the hard work and we put all the effort. This
know.
is a kid who just comes on at the last minute and says, "Okay, let me see how I can."
it's like I know for my son,
You shouldn't reward someone.
I-
who doesn't
you're
put-
I'm
showing
with
them
you.
that there's a path of least resistance that is
Yeah,
okay,
shortcuts.
depending on who your father is.
Shortcuts
Showing
okay.
them that their
Yeah.
shortcuts okay.
Depending on who the coach and your fucking parent
that I don't
is.
need to work hard like
Yeah.
everybody else, and if I know the right people, I'm going to get there.
It's like,
Correct.
and here's the thing, you talk about an athlete, and let's be broad as far as who develop, when you're putting your time into a sport, we're gonna be finished for the official season this weekend for wrestling, and my son's taking a week off. It's already been discussed. He's like, I'm gonna be a slug for a week, which he's allowed to. But it's for a week. He's not saying I'm taking a month off.
And he's also
Yeah.
not taking a season
He's
off.
off, yeah.
They wrestle all year
Year
round
round.
with a 1 week spring break.
Exactly. And we won't compete again until May.
Right.
With Pop and Flow. So, but it's about getting better. Getting that at that point, it's just about getting bigger and better. But my point is that him and I are at a point because you're so vested physically, mentally. The kids are. That it's like, man, now I want to take a deep breath and be like, I'll be done with it. I don't want my weekend spoken for anymore.
I can
wanna
finally
go
come
back.
off my stomach medicines because
Yeah.
I don't got the agita. It's already starting. It's already starting.
So my point is that you get this situation that made me sick. It disgusts me. It disgusts me. The individuals disgust me. The town they come from disgusts me. The good old boy system disgusts me. And the fact, the most important part of this, the one that hits home the hardest is the lack of respect for the sport. How dare you? How fucking dare you think this is Mickey Mouse bullshit that these boys are going through? And I mean it for the kids in that team too, the beginners, the kids that, listen, there's nothing harder than being a first-time wrestler, okay? I'm talking about all those kids on that particular team that were disrespected. Take my own view away from it, my own obvious bias, take it out of it. I'm talking about the respect for the sport. You have no fucking respect for the sport, and you're the coach. You're the head coach, and you allowed that because of your relationship with somebody else, with a parent. And someone should call you out on that bullshit. I can tell you right now. And if you don't think that people didn't see it, you're wrong. Because it talks about your arrogance. Your arrogance. Because then I come to find out that you did it at a league championship too. Okay? Yeah. It was done at a league championship too. And then this, that, and the other thing happens at the state tournament a week ago. Okay? Going on 2 weeks ago now.
Right.
So my point is, shame on you. And you want to win. Those two guys, you walk around like you're big shots and everyone loves you and it's the hometown bullshit. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're disgusting. You're not men. And you have no respect for anything. And you specifically have no respect for those kids that put themselves on the line, did the work, did the training, and continue to do so. And what you did is you showed everyone, including the parents of those other kids, that it's who you know, not what you do.
Yeah, well, that's the worst part.
Yes.
The sacrifice, the blood, sweat, and tears of
Tears.
the other kids.
Right.
You know, they had to do whatever they had, the cutting weight, the angst of trying to make it, and then they get there, then some.
Again,
How about just a week in, the week out of it? Of all
You know,
that
you
grind,
have
I mean-
no fucking clue. Like I'm gonna use a parallel here. Okay, my son dieted and cut weight for a
Yeah,
month,
I know, that's what I'm talking about.
and it wasn't fun. His son at the
Sitting in
Division
the
I
tub.
collegiate level has sucked down to a weight class for what? 3 weeks now, going on a month to hold his weight. So it doesn't end. So you learn this at the youth level, straight to the Division I college level. So what are you teaching these people? What are you teaching these kids? What message are you sending? You have no clue. None. My son's dieting right now for the next week. Okay? So tell me, what is it that you think you're doing? What is it that you think you're doing?
On the opposite note,
Right.
opposite end of that, guys, mentioning Coach Peel, I wasn't there, but I know people talked about it. He talked about it. They had a stud wrestler wrestle, and he lost. You know, he was really good. He was
Right.
supposed to win, and he did something disrespectful to him. I wasn't there. I don't know if
Sure.
he gave the finger or he said "F you" to the other kid or something
Oh,
like
wow.
that.
Right.
And I heard that Peel just looked at all the kids and said, "You see that? That's unacceptable. And that kid will never wrestle for me in high school if he behaves like that, you know?"
Right.
And he's not kidding.
And he's not kidding.
He is a man of his word, so he's not kidding.
Yeah. So,
Well, you know what? I think more importantly, it's not about. That's a great example of what a real coach does. I
Correct.
think more so. That's the point we're trying to make. I think what we're trying to talk about here now is that this good old boy system that potentially keeps going on. It doesn't end. You know, and it's this level of hypocrisy that we speak about so often here that drives me crazy.
you gotta call him out. It's
Listen,
not
I
right.
do.
And that's part of what this forum's all about.
I got to tell you right now, I'm going to be straight up. I've never not called anybody out. I will always call you out when it comes to especially athletics in specific towns and coaches and so on and so forth. And what I'm going to tell you is that at the end of the day, here's what it comes down to, is that if I don't want the kid, okay, I don't want the kid to be labeled. He's labeled enough just by being there. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So it becomes a situation where it's like, guess what? At the end of the day, you know, if I didn't want to protect the kid, I'd be calling out names, I'd be calling out this, I'd be calling out that, I'd be doing X, Y, and Z, you know, and the reality of it is that I'm not going to do it in this particular situation. It was already done on a grand stage, and people that needed to know and people that
Already
saw it, and there's chatter about it. There's more than chatter, there's talk. An official, a highly respected official from USA Wrestling Connecticut saw it on 2 separate occasions. And that's all you need. That's all you need is a guy like that to see it.
Well, how do people deal with that coach in that town or whatever, just in the...
Listen, man, that's
Sport?
the hypocrisy of the town. You know,
Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. It happens all the time, and it seems that it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference what sport it is, you know, or what we're doing or how we're doing it. They continue to do it.
When you don't have a program,
Yeah.
and all you care about is just trying to boost up. I told you before, when you're just trying to like kind of just make your record look a little better or be able to have a little bit more bragging right, they don't care what the work is behind it.
Right.
As long as they can say, hey, this was my kid that did X, Y, and Z as a coach. And that's the wrong answer, because as a coach, you're not just concerned about the wins and the losses. You should be concerned about the development of the child.
Right.
And when you're allowing them to understand what shortcuts will happen, You're not developing the child anymore.
No, it's what I'm saying is it's the example. This is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm getting pissed off. It's going to happen in about 2 seconds. Yeah. So my point is that it's
Behind the scenes secrets, folks.
Exactly.
Tune in.
Yeah.
Don't change the dial.
I'm going to get pissed in about 2 seconds. So my point is that when you look at the example that's being set, right? Like, what is it that you think that you're doing?
Right.
You know, and then you sit there and you advocate it. And that's what you did. You advocated it.
And you helped reinforce
You
that.
helped reinforce it. And you're the coach. They made you the head coach.
But you're never going to get rid of it. I mean, what do? You're never going to get rid of it. You're always going to have to deal with assholes somewhere along the line.
No, you try and call out as many as you can to help keep the sport / the program as pure as you can.
Listen, if I was part of that program, trust me,
It wouldn't have happened.
it wouldn't have happened. I can tell you that right now. You know, that would have not been allowed. I don't care, you know, what the case may be. And
You don't reward poor behavior. You don't reward people who aren't sacrificing. You don't reward people who aren't putting the work in.
they're not part of the team.
But you know
There
what's
it
a
is.
shame? You know
You're
who's
right.
going to suffer here?
It's
You know who's going to
wrestling.
suffer here is the kid's going to suffer. Because the kid's going to show up to a match or an experience where he's going to have to meet an expectation, and he's going to think knowing the right people are going to get him in, and he's going to get dumbfounded.
listen,
and
it's-
what a learning lesson. And that sucks for him, though, because, yeah, it's a learning lesson, but he's going to suffer
There is
from it.
no more painful a lesson than losing a wrestling match, especially if you get pinned, okay? Or you get tech-falled, you get beat, majored, whatever the case may be. Remember, I always say this, and I don't want to sound redundant. It's a fight with rules. That's what wrestling is.
Sure.
So the bottom line is that, you know, just because you stack the odds in your favor to try and shine, because that level that you can compete at is very low, it still doesn't take away from the fact of how you got there and what you did.
Right.
That's the point. That's the point. The
You
point
almost have to wonder
Right.
if the individual was in a different weight class that was super competitive. Would they have would
Heck no.
they have allowed it to happen there?
Heck
No.
no.
I think I agree with that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
They would have never.
But if
done
you've
it.
got a weight class that's kind of, and I don't want to say weaker, because you can only wrestle who's in front of you. But if you have a
Correct.
weight class that's not as deep,
Right.
where the chances, the chances of winning are going to increase just because you're competing,
Right.
does that really fluff your winning percentage? I don't think it does.
Hey, listen, and if you're trying to fluff yourself because you, like I said earlier, oh, I want to, if you can win, makes us look good.
Exactly.
It doesn't make you look good. Everybody there saw what you did. Everyone saw what you did at the league championship.
At least the people that count.
Yes, the people that count in the sport,
Yeah.
they saw what you've done. They saw what you've done. They see what you did. You know, and it's just
You may be able to pull the wool over the town for a little bit,
Yeah.
but guess what? That is not going to equate when the kid gets into high school or something
Right.
where that just can't happen.
right. And unfortunately, this
Because
particular situation.
there are rules, there are regulations that you have to abide by. Otherwise, you don't compete. Doesn't matter who you are.
I saw a funny quote posted. I don't know if it was Chuck or if it was Power that posted it. It was basically people who don't say anything are just as guilty as the people who are doing the wrong. Because if you're not speaking up, right, and in this instance, the town where they're allowing it to happen, where the kid, the coach is allowing this stuff to go on, people are obviously upset about it, but they're not discussing it, they're not bringing it up to people, they're not making a big deal about it, and they're just as guilty as those who are doing it.
Especially
because-
if you witness it.
Yeah.
100%.
Right.
100%.
I mean, the scary part about this situation is this particular student athlete will be in high school next year.
Yeah.
And, what you found, at least in any sport, and it's not just wrestling, I've seen it in football, I've seen it in baseball, I've seen it in every sport. Once you leave the youth ranks and go to high school, it's a whole different world. And if you haven't prepared at the youth level to compete at the high school level,
You're going to get your
you're
feelings
going to
hurt.
get your feelings hurt bad. And it doesn't make a difference what sport it is. That's what I'm trying to say. So now you got these guys that they allow this to happen. So what are you saying? So what you just did is you just showed the high school coach that you taught this kid a very poor lesson of what team play is, what hard work is, or what it takes to be part of a team, and to be, most importantly, you denigrated yourself, okay, because of who
Well,
the
you showed your true character.
Thank you.
As a coach, you showed what your character is.
You showed a character, and as an athlete, you showed character, and as a parent, you showed the character.
But at that age, I mean, do you really put it on the kid? I mean, what does the kid?
No, I
do?
mean,
No,
that's why we're being cloak and dagger with this episode, because I want to respect.
'Cause I
the
almost
kid.
feel bad for the kid because like if that's what's being like preached to the kid, like, hey, we're doing this, but don't worry about it. We know.
Well, here's what I'm gonna use another example. One of our guests here was all the time is Coach Guy Rossini, right? The winningest youth football coach in New Fairfield. Guy's a football genius. I'm going to be biased. He's one of my really good friends, and I wouldn't say things about him if they weren't true. But anyway, I hadn't watched a youth football game since my son had played many years ago. My son plays in college now, and he invited me to come. And I'm like, I'll go meet you. It was up in Bethel, and I went up there. And it was nice. I got to see a couple of the kids that wrestled. They're on a team. It was cool, But what bothered me the most is the game wasn't over, and 3 kids were leaving to go to a lacrosse game. Okay, and it has nothing to do with lacrosse. I want to be
any sport.
I want to be very specific about that. It's nothing to do with lacrosse.
You're being honest?
I'm being completely honest. Okay.
I believe you.
Seriously, I'm not. I don't care if they were leaving for a swim meet. I'm being serious. Okay. They left to go to a lacrosse game.
In the middle of the game.
The game wasn't over. There was like a quarter left. Okay. And I was blown away. And I said to Coach Rossini, I said, really? Well, those kids don't play next week then.
Absolutely.
Period. They don't play. They sit a quarter, at least minimally, because of that. And this is, the greater message about this is, it's rampant everywhere. Because what kind of parent are you that allows that? Okay, it is football season. It is wrestling season. It is lacrosse season. It is baseball season. That's what the season is. Okay? Period.
And you also got parents though that can't even start things and finish them themselves, and then you want them to preach that to their kids.
No, but listen. And the problem is that it basically comes down to what I'm trying to talk about here. It goes down to the coaches and the parents.
They have an obligation.
They have an obligation.
I think they have an obligation to the
And
kid.
your son or daughter has an obligation to the team.
Well, what's sad is the coach. I mean, for me, like especially if I choose to become one, you're the last line of defense. You know what I mean? And sometimes, and I've witnessed it. You got to be the advocate for the kid. Where you got to say to the parent, like, hey, don't even come to the practice.
If you leave,
Don't even come to the practice.
These are the
consequences.
Or I've watched the coach be like, hey, you know what, listen, kid, I love coaching you, but I can't coach anymore because your father's that much of a problem. And it's a shame if you can have somebody else bring you here, but I can't coach you if your father's going to keep coming here. I can't, and it's a shame.
Or mother.
I think, to wrap it up, when you disrespect one sport because of your belief in another, there's no room for you on that team. None. Then go do that sport, whatever that may be. But don't ever disrespect another sport because you think you're that good. You're not that good. Especially in this instance that happened with wrestling. You tried to put yourself in a position to look successful when you yourself are not. And that's a perfect example of how poor the coach was that allowed it and the parent that promoted it. So guys, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Matt Chat Podcast, Paul Ciatto, Frank Ciatto, Christopher Shay, Peter Oberg. We'll catch you next time.